Welcome to the Not in the Job Description podcast. I'm Scott McLaughlin.
And I'm Chris Kiernan.
No matter what type of job you've had, there were situations that happened to you during work that you couldn't wait to tell your friends about.
We interview a variety of guests about some of their crazy stories from work, from entry-level food service industry jobs to doctors and attorneys. We will explore funny, gross, embarrassing, scary, and sometimes almost unbelievable stories that people have experienced while on the job.
Keep in mind that our guests or the companies they work for may be masked in order to protect the innocent, or maybe even the guilty. Today, we welcome Adam, who was once an insurance claims adjuster. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, Adam.
So, insurance claim adjuster, tell us more about it. What are you doing? Aircraft carriers, houses, cars? What is it?
Yeah, aircraft carrier. No, it's auto claims. So I was in auto claims for several years with a large insurance company most of you have heard of. They've got some funny commercials, some dumb commercials, mostly with Aaron Rodgers, but...
Yeah, we would never know who that is then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's funny. On some of those commercials, can't think of the actor's name, but they have different scenarios that are supposedly really, really weird where people have had auto claim. I'm sure you've seen some.
Oh, I've got a lot of stories about some auto claims. I handled everything from just small fender benders to total loss claims to just some outlandish, ridiculous claims as well. So the life of a claims adjuster, when you start working in it, you're seeing, you have to look at photos.
Yeah.
That's how you assess damage. And so when you pull up a claim and you start looking at it and go through the photos, you're like, ugh, starting to see some of those nasty things.
Yeah.
Blood, all of that. And then you get, the longer you work in it, you get desensitized.
I'm sure.
To that stuff.
I have to ask, though, is this a scenario where you're always just looking at photos, or did they ever call you and say, hey, go out to this street and start taking pictures?
Yes. So you do have to go out to intersections, do timing on traffic signals. Some people say, well, I never got an arrow. And so then you have to go sit there for 2 hours watching the turn signals and monitoring and making sure that, yes, they did get no turn signal was skipped in this segment that I watched at that same time of day that person supposedly was in an accident. So.
Which is kind of silly because it's automated.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's not like it waited for Sally to pull up there and decided to not work.
Right. Exactly.
Interesting. So tell us a story about one of the stranger or weirder claims that you've had.
So one of the grossest stories that I have is...
Oh, we're going right into the juicy gross stuff.
Let's just get there.
Let's cut to the chase.
Dive in.
Was just a simple comprehensive claim where they hit a deer. And that's all I saw initially with the claim. That's what came across my desk, accident with a deer. And so to verify, you open up the claim and look for... You open up the photos and start looking for hair or evidence that there was a collision with an animal.
Yeah.
Right. But the first picture that I opened up was the windshield was collapsed and shattered, and blood and guts from that deer, it just disintegrated into millions of pieces. And there was an outline of the driver on the seat, because the blood and everything was around him. And that was like one of the most disgusting things that I had ever seen.
That almost seems like God's way of saying, you're not a good person. I'm going to have this deer just obliterate your car.
Across
you.
Yes. So
this has nothing to do with the episode, but I've always thought it would be a horrible skit, given the blood and guts talk we have with cars. It'd be a horrible SNL skit to just have two cars going towards each other on a country road and like a dead possum in the middle of the road. And one of the cars just, as they pass, just barely clips that possum, and every bit of its innards just hit the other side of the car. I don't know, but it sounds like you've already dealt with that, so maybe it's not an original idea. So you've had the opportunity to see deer hits. I'm curious. Do you guys have to work on cars that have been in fatalities or anything like that?
Yeah, one of the most devastating claims that I've ever worked was a family was on the highway driving to their family vacation.
Yeah.
And the dad missed he was driving and the dad missed the exit. As he realized he was going to miss the exit and then started to back up, and he got rear-ended by a semi because he was backing up. And there were 2 kids in the backseat, young kids, and it killed the kids instantly.
Sure.
Killed the mom. The dad was still alive.
Oh,
so he has to
that's
live with
even
this
worse.
guilt
Yeah.
every single day.
Right.
But when we have to look at photos and things like that. And so you look at these photos, and because we do have to write reports and things like that are going to go to litigation. And, these documents have to go to court, and they're going to be represented by a lawyer and all of this stuff, especially with fatalities. So you do have to look at everything.
Yeah.
And one of the photos that I'll never forget was just headphones and an iPad.
Yeah, that's
and
a little
you could tell that
close.
there was little kids, little girls.
That's awful.
And as a father of 3 girls myself, that is just
that's rough.
gut wrenching.
I think it is interesting when you talk about, I'm not making any kind of political statement here, you talk about things like COVID and how dangerous that was, and we didn't know what it was about, but if you went to the news, COVID was on every day, 75 times a day on every channel. If they reported car accidents like they reported COVID, people would get off the roads, I think, because it is so common. We're all using this mode of transportation. There are accidents that kill people every single day.
Every day.
And I imagine if that was on the news to start up every single newscast, we'd have a lot less traffic out there, I'm thinking.
We would, and we would be using a lot more public transportation maybe, or mass transit. So.
Until those bus accidents hit the news.
Right. Mowing people over.
That's right.
City streets.
You mentioned, you have to write up these reports so that they're, follow kind of a certain legal kind of outline so they could be used in court. Did you ever have to show up and testify or be like a subject matter expert or something like that? Or I'm sure the insurance company probably has people that's what they do.
As large as that insurance company was, they had their own legal counsel and subject matter experts that's all they did. That was their job, was to go to court. And but it was my job to provide them with that documentation. And so there were times that I did get deposed so that they would have a statement of record from me, but I personally never had to go to court.
I have been in the business of fraud for a long time. I'm not in it right now, but I have a lot of experience in it. Do you ever see insurance claims where you're like, oh, this is 100% bullshit? Whatever they're saying didn't happen like this?
Oh, absolutely. And it's,
you didn't even hesitate. Like, oh, there's tons of bullshit out there.
So especially when it's 2 people against each other, you have conflicting stories. But then also someone will just randomly turn in a claim for all of these things that were stolen out of their car.
Yeah.
And there's no forced entry. There's no I left my car unlocked. And and you had the most brand new golf clubs in there and the most
the Hope Diamond.
You had the top of the line computer and 15 iPads in there that you were going to give away for Christmas. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, we used to get that a lot. The way we would squelch quite a bit of it is we knew people, like I worked in where we had debit cards and credit cards, and customers would say, well, this is fraud because I'm pretty sure my neighbor or my brother or my uncle or whatever stole it. And we said, okay, well, that's interesting. They went to Sephora, but okay. Have you called the police yet? No. Well, would you create a police report? Because, you had something stolen. It would sure help us with our investigation. We can't force them to do it, but most times they're like, well, why would I do that? Do I have to do that? As soon as you start to get some of these things where you're like, okay, this story's starting to fall apart,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
you just start asking some of those, not interrogation questions, but just trying to dig a little deeper into the situation. And police reports number one go-to, especially in insurance claims.
Right. Yeah.
And really anything like fraud, like you were in, get a police report. That's the number one thing.
Yeah, and I don't know. At least in our business, we have some rules where we don't demand a police report.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can demand a police report on auto claims or not, but it was pretty funny. People would squirm as soon as you mentioned it. Suddenly they're out. So that's usually a telltale. It's not a definite, but it's a check in the left side of the column saying this is probably BS.
Yeah. Most of the times, because of car accidents and clogging up roads and things like that, there are police reports, and it's just getting them. But on some of those fraudulent claims, they are
like for the break-in stuff.
Like the break-in
Right.
stuff. Those are the ones where you're like, you try to force them and like, hey, I can't move forward with this unless you have a police report.
Right. Now, if they said to you, no, I had all this stuff and I just forgot to lock my car, can you deny a claim just because of that? Oh, well, you're stupid.
Negligence?
You didn't like your car. Sorry, we're not going to pay out.
We can put some negligence on the person, and so we don't have to pay out 100% of the claim.
Yeah.
We can withhold some to put some onus and blame or reliability
Right.
on
Yeah.
them.
And I'm sure you probably say, oh, you had 10 iPads. Well, we'll need to see receipts for those iPads.
Yes.
And
Yep.
then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, well,
Yeah.
I don't have
or the golf clubs. The golf clubs were a big one.
Yeah.
Because they are expensive and they cost money, and you can have them for years and years. And how I played golf since I was 7 years old, and
Yeah.
Which I had noticed. You always have new golf clubs. Now I
Right.
know how you're getting those out.
And you know the business. Interesting.
Yeah, right. But I can't tell you where my receipt is for my golf
Oh, God,
clubs,
no.
right? So
That's
that's
so many years later, right?
yeah. So that's a big one.
I'm surprised you can still use those clubs from when you were 7.
U.S. kids golf.
I don't have a ton of experience with my own insurance claims, I'm happy to say. Plenty of interactions with the police, but nothing from an insurance perspective. And one of the funniest stories we have is Luke, when and this must have been like a day or two after he got his license. My son Luke, who kind of runs this podcast, he called me up at work, and I never could get calls from people at work. The first call he calls is, hey, you care if I take the car to go to Wendy's? So, of course, I'm like, you called me at work for that? But I guess, this is a first-time thing for him. He's never driven alone before that we were aware of. So I said, no, that's fine, Luke. So he takes the car. I go back to work. About a half an hour later, my phone rings. It's Luke. But I'm in a meeting. I can't leave. And then it rings again. And then there was a text. Hey, can you call me? So I leave to another room. I'm like, what's up? He's like, I was in a car accident.
Oh, God.
First day out. And I said, well, what happened? So if you know Luke, especially take a few years off of him now, not the most extemporaneous speaker out there. He's trying to tell me the story. I got nothing. I said, just stay where you are. I'm coming over. Well, what happened is Walgreens parking lot. And he was parked, and this guy was driving down the drive section of this parking lot, and Luke was backing out, and this dude took off like behind him, and as Luke, oh, I apologize, it was the exact opposite. Luke was driving. This guy was backing out. I'm glad my wife's here to always correct me.
That's what wives do.
Yeah. She'll be like, that wasn't Luke. Just give it a minute. Luke was driving. This guy backs out and hits Luke in the back door and the back tire and the back, whole back of the car, back fender area. So he essentially waited till Luke had already passed him, backed out and hit him. And I got there and Luke goes, yeah, I've been talking to this guy. He's really nice. And I was like, oh, yeah? What have you been talking about? He goes, he just said we should just leave. This is just an insurance company thing to deal with. And I was like, oh, no, we're calling the police.
Yeah, not happening.
Just to get a report. Mm-hmm. And when I got there, the guy tried to leave. And I said, well, let's just wait. And, of course, the police have better things to do than deal with our stupid car accidents.
Right,
but,
especially in a parking lot where nobody's injured.
Exactly.
Right? Exchange information and file.
But we stalled long enough that the cop came over, and he looked, and he goes, tell me what happened. And you could see where this guy backed out. He had like a trailer hitch, and you could see where it just hit the back door of the car and just scraped and ripped the tire apart and just kept on. It looked like the Titanic. So, he goes, oh, well, I'll write this up. And we said, okay, does it look like, he goes, I don't indicate who's at fault in a parking lot, but
right.
this seems pretty clear cut to me. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, really? And this guy told Luke, like, oh, no, at this stage, we just, accidents happen. We just drive away. So he was pissed when his insurance had to pay for it.
Oh, I'm sure he was.
Yeah.
But trying to tell Luke he was at fault.
He was trying to tell my son that he was at fault. And of course, the 16-year-old,
right,
who was given some respect growing up, was freaked out a little bit and didn't want to, take this adult to town and go, "No, you're full of crap, dude."
Right.
But we ended up. Luckily, that guy was insured by the same insurance company as us. They don't like to spend a lot of time fighting back and forth internally. They were just like, pay it out.
Yep. Yeah, that's one thing that you'll find is if it's a claim within the same insurance company, it usually resolves the liability. Usually resolves
right, real quick,
pretty quick because
right.
The subrogations when they go after another insurance company to collect what they've paid out, the subrogation is super fast and it's not really a thing. It's really a clerical thing at that point, being with the same insurance company.
Now I know you said the deer explosion through the windshield was quite a memorable experience. Do you have any other ones that were just either kind of funny or something you don't see every day?
Yeah. So I got a claim from that came across my desk that said, I'm trying to think of how they worded it, but it was paint in the car, like on the seats. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so I just call the insured, our customer, and I just say, hey, talking to the wife, and hey, what's going on here? And so she says, so my kids, who are like 5 years old, got into some spray paint and went into the car and spray painted the whole inside of the vehicle. It wasn't just the seats.
Oh, no.
It was the dash, it was the windows, it was the hood liner, it was everything. It was everywhere. And these kids just had a ball. I opened up the pictures and just busted up laughing. I mean, there's green and yellow paint all through the interior of this vehicle. And it wasn't a newer vehicle. So by the time, and you can't wash that off. It's cloth seats.
Yeah.
You have to replace the seats. So by the time, and the hood liner and the dash and all of that stuff.
You have to total the car.
We did. We had to total the car.
I was kidding.
The value of the replacement of all of that stuff was more than the value of the vehicle.
Oh, that's
which
funny.
then constitutes it being totaled. So that's the definition of a total loss. If the repairs cost more than the value of the vehicle.
Yeah.
So we had to total the vehicle out and tell them, you got to go get another vehicle if you want to pursue this claim. Or I can pay you some cash value, but you're going to go have to get a salvage title on this vehicle.
That's awful.
Now, I've never advocated child abuse, but that's a situation where somebody's getting in trouble.
Yes. And they thought it was just going to be like a quick, hey, give me some money. I'm going to go, send us to the body shop or whatever and have some stuff replaced. But no, carpet. I'm talking, there was nothing clean in that car. There was paint everywhere.
You guys should have thought out of the box a little bit. Just get some white spray paint.
Yeah.
Do the whole thing over again and be like, look, I saved you a lot of effort.
Have at it, kids. Like giving them the cardboard box and just start coloring.
That'll keep them busy for a whole day.
Right?
I heard of a similar situation where somebody had left a gallon of milk in their trunk over like a hot summer weekend. They come home on Friday from the grocery store, but they don't use that car again until Monday. 90 degrees for 3 straight days. It was a BMW. The smell, they said, was so bad. So they called their insurance. Hey, is there a claim or something? And the guy was like, yeah, I've had this happen before. Good luck. You're not going to get rid of that smell. And they tried, and eventually they had to get rid of the car because the smell was
that's gross.
Just so bad and nasty. Now, I don't know if insurance did anything or not for it, but yeah, that's bad.
Yeah. So going off of that, where you have to get rid of the car, anytime there is body matter or blood in a vehicle due to an insurance claim, the car has to be destroyed.
Really?
So most of the time when a car is totaled due to an accident, there are salvageable parts that can come off of that. And they go to a place like LKQ, which stands for like, kind, and quality, that's where they get their used parts for the body shop and all of that stuff. But if there is any type of body matter or blood from an animal or a person, then the car has to be destroyed.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that if I hit a deer, or, deers actually, they look for me. The deer look for me on the road. If I hit a deer, they can't use my back axle of my car to give to somebody else?
If the body matter or blood is inside the vehicle, they cannot.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
But on a deer hit, it very rarely gets inside.
Correct.
Yeah.
But like that time Scott shot Marvin in the face, that was a whole different situation.
Well,
that
was
a completely different.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
So where the deer went through the windshield that we talked about earlier?
Definitely meets the criteria.
That meets the criteria. Meets.
He's here all week, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, I've got some neighbors, and I can't even imagine this yet. They have a Tesla. They bought a Tesla, and they had it for like 5,000 miles. And it's funny, they were kind of on the fence, like, ooh, are we going to like this car or not? Turns out they loved it. Drive it for 5,000 miles, get in a little car accident. Somebody hits them like in the front fender, front tire area. To look at it, you would go, yeah, that's on a regular car, that's going to cost you about $3,500, $4,000. They totaled the car.
Mm-hmm.
It evidently did something in the battery compartment or something. It's like a 6-figure loss over an accident that happened at about 18 miles an hour.
Incredible. So I have a story about a claim that I did. It was for a Mercedes. It was a newer Mercedes at the time. And the frame, they got into an accident and the frame bent slightly. And there are different levels of body shops for vehicles. So there's like tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And depending on the type of vehicle, they have to go to a certain tiered shop. And this particular Mercedes had to go to a tier 3 body shop to have the frame adjusted. And there was nobody, and it was our client, like our customer. So he was subject to his rental agreement.
Yeah.
So he only had his rental car for a certain period of time. But in order to get into this body shop, it was going to take close to 3 months to get into that tier 3. And we had to ship it 2 states away.
Oh, gosh.
So he was like, can you guys just total this vehicle?
Right.
Like, we're going through all of this trouble. Can you just total it? And I'm like, I'm sorry, your car is worth $180,000. Right. This repair's $30,000. Right.
Shame on you for buying a nice car.
Right.
Did he
I can't justify that.
Did he just give some cans of spray paint to his kids and said,
have at it?
Yeah. Get some blood inside that car.
Right.
They'll be destroying the whole thing.
See, we're already working the system.
Yeah. Right. We're full of ideas.
I love it.
Have you had, you had to have seen accidents or what's left of an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Do you always get the scoop on, here's what happened? So you get to see some stupid things people do. I'm quite sure no one ever says, I was dicking around with the radio, but you know what happens, right?
Yeah. Texting is the biggest one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so like in the police reports, it'll say, like, there's a detailed report that we can see where this person, there's either a fatality or something serious happened, and it says, person was texting, and it gives evidence of, the phone was laying on the ground on inside the vehicle, unlocked, and there was a half-typed message going on.
Yeah, my daughter, we'll find out if she listens to this podcast, because what I'm about to say right here, she'll come and get me. But we wondered, she totaled her car. I don't know, it was the first car we got for her, and it was a really nice car, and I got a call at work that she was in a car accident. So I go there, and she has it was a Honda Civic, She completely went up the ass end of this truck. And my first thought, of course, because all these kids, they're attached to their damn phones. I said,
They are.
"Were you on the phone?" She goes, "No." She says, "It was sitting in the seat, and it was found like in the passenger side floorboard." And I said, "How did you miss this?" And she goes, "I don't know. I was just driving and everything stopped ahead of me. It stopped so quick that the person ahead of me started going off the road to avoid it, and I hit them." And I was like, okay. Well, the funny part about this story, not only did we give her the third degree, because Kim and I were always questioning. I mean, we have to go with what she says, of course.
Sure.
Always question whether she's on her damn phone. But I'm thinking, God, the person she hit is just going to sue the living shit out of us.
Mm-hmm.
It was somebody I worked with.
Oh.
And luckily, they weren't hurt or anything. But, that doesn't mean that somebody can't try to make a claim.
Right.
But, they were just like, okay, well, enough. So I think, he was just being a good sport because we worked together because his wife was driving that truck. And luckily, we didn't have any more incidents outside of the insurance company. But that could have been ugly. And people drive. I mean, we give so much crap about Sammy. You better not be on your phone. You better not be on your phone. I think somebody would do better off driving drunk than texting. I really do.
Right?
I mean, there's a line, of course. But
right. Well, yeah, just stay below the legal limit. You're good,
yeah.
right?
I would say if you hit whatever the legal limit is, just a little over, I'd rather you do that. Yeah. The last time Chris was in court, they told him it was this.
Right.
But I think if you did that, you'd be much better off if you just had a nice buzz. I think you're way more distracted by texting. It's horrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because your focus goes 100% to that phone instead of on the road.
And let's admit, we've all done it, right? Both.
Yeah. I was going to say, what are we admitting to here?
At the same time.
That's right, yeah. Right. I'm no quitter. Yeah.
I can multitask.
What about, like, I see these commercials for these personal injury lawyers, and, they're like, I don't get paid unless you get paid. Or when they see our law firm coming, the insurance just write the check. Is there any truth to that? I mean, the company you worked for, if they saw certain attorneys, were they like, oh, we're afraid of this guy, we better write the check? Or was it's all just strictly a numbers game? You're looking at the losses, and it doesn't matter who's representing them. They're going to get the same type of payout.
That is a great question. It doesn't matter who's coming. Every insurance company has a department to deal with lawyers only. And so when you see that if someone threatens with a lawyer, the adjuster immediately, if they're not in that department, will immediately say, send us a letter of representation. This conversation's over.
Yeah, we have to. And
move it over because we don't want to mess around with any back and forth. And then you'll start hearing some people like backpedaling, like, no. I'm sorry. You told us you were getting a lawyer. You need to get a lawyer.
Right.
Like that's on you now. And if they go to that department and they do have a lawyer, we don't care if it's someone on
just
TV.
A lawyer.
Yeah,
right.
They're just another lawyer.
Right.
So that really doesn't matter. It's just who the insurance company talks to.
Right. Yeah, Chris, I didn't realize you were that gullible. Did you go see one of these attorneys?
No, I did not. But, I was in the smallest of fender benders. Somebody hit me on the way to work, and it was nothing. I mean, the police, because it was on 71 right on the highway there. And so the police did come to clear everything out. Nothing major. I signed off on everything, no injuries, anything, on our way. For weeks after, I kept getting these mailings, like
ambulance chasers.
Right. And it's like, you may have said you weren't injured, but it's not too late to get checked out. And in fact, I would have like chiropractors sending me mail. Hey, I saw you were in this accident. Maybe you should come in for an adjustment. This can be covered on a claim.
Yeah.
So it's big business, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But you've seen these characters on their commercials, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
I don't get paid unless you get paid kind of situation.
Right. Which is, they do that. They get paid about 1/3 of whatever the payout is. Gotcha. So they're going to try to get pain and suffering out of things.
Right.
Out of a small fender bender, you're looking at $500. It's not really even worth their time.
Right.
What are you talking about? You missed a day of work.
Yeah, but that depends on how bad you're injured there. Yeah. Now, I there was a situation when our kids were little and we had some other people that lived in the neighborhood. One of the neighbors had a birthday party for their kids, and I'll never forget this because, to me, you just do the right thing. And you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I've always been raised. And we're at this party, and these two guys are sitting, mind you, at a kid's party, drinking straight up alcohol, and they're going, yeah, I remember this one time. And they start swapping stories about how they committed insurance fraud. These are two dudes in the neighborhood.
What?
And I remember this guy, Greg, who was here, I kind of hit him on the side. And I said, are you listening to this shit? And this guy was like, yeah, the reason me and my wife got to go on a really nice honeymoon, I got rear-ended. And I jumped out and I saw the woman and I said, are you insured? Are you insured? And she said, yeah. And I just laid down on the ground and said, call an ambulance.
Oh, geez.
Oh, my
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
He was bragging about this. Now, not only did I think that he was a complete douchebag for doing this, but when the other neighbor goes, let me tell you my story, I felt like I was in Twilight Zone.
They're
I'm like,
one-upping each other on their insurance
Am
fraud
I the
claims.
only person here who is doing the right thing? I was like, what is going on? But yeah, there's got to be a lot of that ambulance chasing mentality.
Yeah. And the other thing that they'll do, especially with going to get a lawyer and all of that stuff, they don't realize that the insurance company is going to go ahead and get copies of the medical reports.
Right.
So that they can justify
Yeah.
paying what they're asking for, or say counter with something like,
Sure. How about $5?
right. 500 was a big one I always threw out there. $500, you go away.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I remember my friend Jimmy used to drive in high school. He would drive us to school sometimes, and he had this little, I think it was an Opel, if you know those cars, crappy little cars. And I was sitting in the back seat, and there was a girl named Jenny sitting in the front seat, and there wasn't any room in this car. So I had my legs on each side of the chair, of the seat. And as he's pulling out of the school, this car just T-bones us. And it crushed my leg between the seat and the door. And so it hurt. It was a little swollen. I was probably 16 years old, 17. And I remember I got up and I was like, yeah, that sucked. Because when you're younger, you don't give a shit about this stuff. And we laughed at him for getting hit. And that was the end of it. I was called by this insurance company 24 times. Like, hey, are you okay? Hey, we want to talk to you. Hey, every time I come home from school, this was back in answering machine days, there was an answering machine message. They wanted to talk to me. And I finally called them. And they were like, well, have you been to the doctor? I said, I'm not going to the doctor. It's no big deal. Forget about it. They were like, well, we just want to make sure you're okay. Now, I was a little suspect after the 18th call.
Right.
But I got a check in the mail for like $500.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the check to say, if your leg falls off later, now we're no longer responsible.
Yes.
And I just didn't feel right taking the money. I just threw the check in the corner and never did anything with it. But yeah, they just were like, we will not be settled until you have something that you sign off on, because this is just an outstanding liability to us the longer it sits out there.
You should have gotten rid of that check and then waited till the statute of limitations was almost ready to expire and then hit them with something.
File it.
Like, yeah.
$3 million.
Right. Hip replacement.
On a 17-year-old? That's weird, but okay.
So, Adam, I'm sure while you're looking at these claims, and sometimes they could be a little depressing, to kind of lighten the load, did some crazy stuff happen then at the office between claims adjusters? Would you try to one-up each other with oh, look at my picture or anything like that? Or?
Oh, yeah. Anytime we got something crazy, we piled around people's desks just to go through the pictures and to laugh or read the facts of loss, which is the story of what happened to create the accident. So we would everyone would pile around, or an email would go around with a screenshot of what happened. Like, check these things out. And then everyone would just enjoy doing that.
And so is this office like any other office? Did you guys ever try to prank each other, or maybe have fake claims of some sort, or just to try to get a laugh out of somebody? Or
no fake claims.
I think you missed an opportunity there, brother.
Yeah. No fake claims. No, it was just a normal office.
What about the grizzled old veteran that's just seen everything and nothing affects them?
Yeah, nothing. You can go to them for any question. And they'll have the answer right now. Like
I love those people.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And then you try to one up them or try to tell them a story, then they're just like, not fazed by it at all. They're just, that's just another day at the office for me.
They're like, Space Lab fell on one of my cars.
Right. Yes.
Right. So in the time frame that you've been doing this, because you have to deal with a lot of people, and again, Chris and I have some banking background. I always like to ask people, do you ever have any experience with brush with fame? Anybody who's known in the public?
So I had one claim. It was from a famous wrestler out of Memphis, Tennessee, and WWE.
I got you, but I'm trying to figure out who this is. I'm not as huge a fan as I was as a kid.
Yeah, so this would be from probably the 80s.
Okay. All right. You're piquing my interest. Please continue.
Yes. And one of his mistresses was driving one of his cars and got into an accident. And I got a call from him that said, make this go away quickly.
Oh, wow.
And pay it, be done, go away.
Right. Raise my rates if you have to.
Yes.
Right? Nice.
So I do remember that one. But there are, being such a large insurance company, there are famous people from all over that are insured, because insurance, car insurance is required in order to be a driver. So everyone has it. You're not exempt if you're famous, rich and famous.
Right.
But that was one of the ones that like caught me off guard. Now there were some like Cleveland Indians baseball players that I've done their claims and stuff like that, and they're just nice to talk to. Like, this is what happened. Like, can we get it?
Yeah, I used to have a job
possible
where I worked in wealth management, and when you talk about like brushes with fame, I talked to a ton of people who were very famous, and it just ruins it for you because they're just people.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, they're just like, hey, how's it going? And you have your conversation. I always find that kind of interesting too, because they are nothing, at least with a baseball player, they're doing something that, that's like, okay, I see. But when I would talk to actors and actresses, it's like, okay, so you're nothing like that character everyone knows you as. It was really kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So the baseball players, they're like, just, I need to get this taken care of as quickly as possible. Anything that you could do. And they're very nice about everything, and especially if you treat them with respect and don't fangirl them like, oh my God, this person's talking to me or whatever. They're just like, can you take care of this as quickly as possible? I'm very busy. I'll get right on it.
That's when you said, you're really busy playing a game.
Right. You get paid more than me for playing a game.
Like, my cousin's a little sick. If you could hit 2 home runs for him today, I'll speed this claim along.
Just kind of point to left field for the second one, please.
Yeah, but then the wrestler, he was just like, because he had his mistress driving his car, he was like, pay the other person, like, get this taken care of, get it out of here. I don't want anyone looking into this. And he was a bit more aggressive.
I have an experience on the flip side of that a little bit in a banking kind of environment. We had a guy who he had a secretary, and he was hanging out with said secretary for a very, very, very long time, and she would go on business trips with him. They were very close. And as this guy was evidently very close with his admin, after a few years, they have a little falling out. And so he goes back and looks at all the charges that he had. Now, this was years ago. Looks at all the charges he had and decides, well, this isn't good. His wife looks at him and says, what are you doing? And starts looking over his shoulder and goes, what is all this stuff? And he goes, I don't know. I think I've got fraud. So he puts a fraud claim on, I can't remember if it was debit card or credit card. He puts a fraud claim there to the point where, investigators will go and say, well, I mean, there's a second name on the account. We're going to ask that person. And that person was like, oh, yeah, we were dating. We would travel every time he would go somewhere. And they're like, did you know he was married? Yeah. Oh, yeah. He said his wife was okay with it. But this guy tried to play it off like he'd never known this woman before in his entire life. And, I understand you doing that in front of your wife if you want to make a big game. But when she's not around and you're going, I've never seen that woman in my life. You know how easy it is to find out that she worked for you?
Right.
We used to find weird things like that every now and then. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of things in the insurance claim realm. I'm curious if this is a common occurrence. My wife was driving down a country road one time, and it appears that a mailbox jumped off the side of the road and hit the truck. Have you heard that happen before?
Those things do happen.
Okay. All right. Well, a lot of frequency on that because she swears this thing just jumped right out of the road.
Yeah. Those things do happen.
Yeah.
It's so that they can be comprehensive claims
Oh,
rather
good.
than collision claims.
Yeah, we bust her chops all the time because, I don't know if there was a cell phone involved. I didn't, get into the details, but it was dark out and she hit a mailbox. I imagine that's got to be, in country roads, that's got to be a common claim.
Oh, yeah. Even just not even country roads.
Really?
Yeah. People hitting mailboxes all the time.
I guess that's true.
But those are collision type claims.
Not in Kim's situation. I mean, that thing's comprehensive.
Right. That was a missile headed her
Yes,
way.
absolutely. She barely got off to the side, so it only ruined one half of the car.
When you were doing claims, did you have like an assigned territory, or could you have gotten a call from somebody in California, somebody in Florida? Because I feel like regionally there might be different, certain claims that happen. Like where we live, we're kind of rural. Adam and I, hitting a deer is pretty common, but
yes.
Los Angeles, it probably doesn't happen as often. So did you see that regional kind of stuff? Or?
Yeah. So when I first started, I handled 3 states: Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And then, couple years in, we took on 11 states, and we lost Kentucky, but we gained like Indiana, Illinois, Hawaii.
So your moonshine claims went way down.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Gotcha.
But we started handling 11 states, and it was based on the policy was similar in those states rather than
from a legal perspective.
Yeah, from regionally.
So you probably saw a lot of the same stuff then, really.
Yeah.
Midwest. Right.
Yeah, but like I said, we had Hawaii claims.
Deer hits in Acapulco.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there were some like weird things that happened in Hawaii that you wouldn't see in like Iowa.
Right.
For example, like flooding of cars happening quite a bit.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, because they get a lot of rain in the like mountainous areas of Hawaii.
Not a lot of volcano activity in Iowa.
Right. Not a ton. Not a ton. Landslides.
Right. Yeah. And any other weird story? Because what I have found when we talk to people about their jobs, I know what happens. I've been there. You work in these jobs that, from the outside, sometimes they seem like crazy or sexy or wild. But when you're doing the job for so long, it's just another day. And you may run into some shit where, yes, it's crazy, but you've seen this 20 times before, so you don't think anything of it. Can you think of anything from just another strange story from something to take us out on? From a claim that was done, or maybe even one you've heard about that's folklore in the industry?
Not really folklore, but I can talk to you about the first total loss claim that I did.
Okay.
And with a total loss, we take the vehicle from the person.
Right.
Before I was in total loss, I was in like just injury claims and where people were injured and the car was repairable. But then in total loss, you have to take the vehicle from the person. You have to assess the value of the damage and things like that. And I remember my first one, because I felt so bad afterwards. because it was an older van that was just like barely damaged at all.
Yeah.
But the cost to replace that bumper
Oh, yeah.
was way more than the value of the vehicle. And so and it's drivable.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a total ton of confidence in the process at the time or anything like that. It's my very first one. And I told the lady, I'm going to send a wrecker out to take this thing from you. And I'm going to send you a check. And she's like, but it's drivable. I don't care. It's totaled.
Yeah. It's not worth the expense.
Yeah. So I'm going to send you a check to go get another vehicle, which was like $2,000,
Yeah,
right?
That's awful.
Yeah. And so you're going to have to go find another vehicle. And by the way, your rental car, you only have it for another 7 days.
Oh.
So I'm just the biggest asshole to this lady. And I'm like, I know I'm following all the rules,
right?
But I feel terrible about doing this. And she starts crying and giving me the sob story about her kids and all this stuff. And I then have to just like shut off all emotion.
Oh,
and I'm like,
that's awful.
I don't care. This truck's coming this day. Right. They'll pick it up. And I've never forgotten about that. And I wish I knew who that lady was, because I would send her a vehicle, like just brand new.
There you go.
I felt so bad for that.
So is there not an option to go, oh, you're going to total it? Never mind.
Yeah, they can pull their claim.
You forgot to mention that to her?
Yeah. Like, I was just so caught up in all of that like, they could cancel their claim.
Addicted to no. Right. This bitch is going.
Right. This thing is mine.
Is that where that van came from? I saw it in your driveway.
Yeah,
I picked
right.
you up today.
That plus
free Wi-Fi on the license plate.
Yeah, right. The value of that. If this van's a rockin', don't come knocking bumper stickers. They don't even make those anymore. You totaled that car.
I did.
Wow.
I did. I took the last one. It was a relic.
Well, we're getting to the part of the episode where I ask Chris, what did we learn today?
Yeah, I learned to keep spray paint away from my kids and my car at the same time.
That is a good idea. I learned, and I'm going to institute this immediately, I'm not going to let my girlfriends drive my cars anymore. No. I mean, it's just too dangerous. Something happens, and that's a weird thing to explain to my wife.
Right.
All right.
That's a tough conversation.
It is a tough conversation I don't want to have again.
Right.
All right. Hey, thank you very much, Adam, for joining us today. I'm Scott McLaughlin.
I'm Chris Kiernan.
Saying, we'll see you at work.
Thank you for listening to the Not in the Job Description podcast. If you have a story you'd like to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know by sending us an email with a brief description of your story to stories@notinthejob.com.